Hello, I'm Matthew Walker. I am Life Sciences, and this is my BlueSky proposal. So the issue that I'm trying to address with this proposal is recently, in the past 10 or 15 years or so, there have been a bunch of unexplained deaths of high-performance athletic military individuals. And it just so happens that these individuals all are carriers for sickle cell anemia, meaning they have one copy of the beta hemoglobin gene, of the sickle beta hemoglobin gene, and one copy of the normal beta hemoglobin gene in their blood. So what I want to look at is whether there might be a relationship between being a carrier for sickle cell anemia and being at risk for a sudden death that so far scientists have been unable to determine is due to sickling of blood. So the way that I'm hoping to go about doing this experiment is very, very simple. Probably too simple right now, but basically I want to be looking at, firstly, the question I'm going to ask is, do individuals with this carrier condition, does their blood sickle at all? So that's the first question I'm going to be investigating. And to do that, I'm going to set up 3 different blood samples. One of normal blood with 2 copies of the normal beta hemoglobin gene, one with the sickle carrier blood with 1 normal copy and 1 copy of the sickle gene, and then 1 sickle cell anemia with 2 copies of the sickle beta hemoglobin gene, which scientists have already proven that this blood does sickle under low oxygen conditions. So then I would simply be adjusting the partial pressures of oxygen in the 3 samples, starting at 100 milligrams, and moving downwards from there, and observing under the microscope whether the cells do sickle at all under extremely low oxygen conditions. So that answers my first question of whether the blood sickles. Then if it does sickle, I'll want to know, of course, at what extent does it sickle. So I'll closely track the blood and determine the exact partial pressure of oxygen at which it begins to sickle, at which then it might pose a risk for an individual in their capillaries especially, which are very thin, and in which sickled blood can clot and limit blood flow to a particular part of the body, potentially causing death. So if that proves successful and it does indeed sickle, and I do find at what partial pressure of oxygen I want to sickle, the last thing I'm going to do, also very simple, is look at athletes and see and observe the partial pressure of oxygen in their blood at different levels of physical exertion. So I can say to an athlete, so this is, you're totally fine in this range of physical activity once you work out or once you're performing at a high level for, say, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, especially at higher altitudes. We can say, this is when you'll start to be at risk, this is when you should monitor your conditions, this is when you might want to take it easy. And also, I should say that the sickle cell trait is a pretty wide-reaching problem. There are 4 million Americans in the US with sickle cell trait, the carrier condition, 300 million individuals worldwide, and so far this is a completely undiagnosed problem. So no one knows. There are 300 million people out there that might have something that could cause them sudden, unexplained death that no one knows about. So I think that's a bit foolish this time we live in, and that's why I'm hoping to address this problem. Life Sciences 1a has helped me most on this proposal by allowing me to think about combining biological and chemical problems, which was one of the great things we did in Life Sciences 1a, of course. Sickle cell anemia is, of course, a very biological problem, but the approach I'm using to address it is a chemical one, looking at the chemical interactions within blood and how amino acids can be deformed to cause a change in structure, which then affects their function, of course, and the inability for blood to flow.